You still have their name saved in your phone. You have opened their profile more times than you would like to admit. Some part of you is still waiting for a notification that will never come. That is not weakness. That is not you being unable to move on. That is a 200,000-year-old survival system running headfirst into a piece of software it was never built to understand. We call it grief. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain is not grieving a person. It is grieving a signal. And the signal, unlike the person, refuses to disappear. Start with what is actually happening inside your skull. Your brain builds something neuroscientists call a neural map for every person you love. It is not a photograph. It is a living prediction engine tuned to their voice, their walk, their specific way of laughing at things that are not funny. For years, that map updates constantly, fed by new information every single time you interact with them. Then, the person is gone, and the map does not update. It just waits.
Psychologist John Bowlby spent decades studying this exact wiring through his work on attachment theory. He found that human bonds are not sentimental extras, they are biological infrastructure built to keep us searching for the people we depend on. Search is the key word. Bowlby documented a distinct behavioral phase after loss that he called searching, scanning crowds, listening for footsteps, half expecting a voice around the corner. For most of human history, that searching had a natural shutoff point. Eventually, no new signal ever arrived, and the brain, starved of feedback, slowly stopped looking. Here is the twist nobody warned you about. In the digital age, the signal never fully stops. Think about what a phone actually is to your nervous system. It is not a communication device. It is a slot machine. Every time you unlock it, your brain fires a small burst of dopamine, not because something good happened, but because something good might happen. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz demonstrated this decades ago in his research on reward prediction. Dopamine spikes hardest not at the reward itself, but in the uncertain gap right before you find out. Anticipation, not satisfaction, is the addictive part.
Now, put a dead person's name inside that slot machine. Their contact still exists. Their old messages are still marked delivered. Their profile picture might still update if a friend tags them in an old photo. Every one of those tiny digital events fires the same anticipatory circuit that a living relationship would. Your prefrontal cortex knows they are gone. Your limbic system does not. And when those two systems disagree, you get a very specific kind of exhaustion. Researchers now describe it as ambiguous loss, a term coined by therapist Pauline Boss to describe grief with no clean resolution, no final closing of the loop. Question: how do you close a loop that keeps generating new data? You do not easily. This is where the haunting begins. Not the ghost story kind, the algorithmic kind. Social platforms were built to resurface memories. That is a feature, not a glitch. On this day reminders, auto-generated video montages, birthday notifications for accounts nobody deleted, all of it optimized for engagement. None of it designed with mourning in mind. Digital afterlife researcher Elaine Casket, who has spent years studying what happens to our data after death, has described how platforms accidentally turn grief into a subscription. The dead do not get quieter with time. Sometimes, thanks to an algorithm, they get louder.
And then there is the newest layer, AI reconstruction. Voice clones, chatbots trained on years of someone's old text messages, built to respond in their exact rhythm, their exact turns of phrase. Some grieving families have used these tools willingly, calling them comforting. Others have described the opposite, a strange, low-grade horror at hearing a familiar cadence come out of an unfamiliar source. Either way, the underlying mechanism is the same one MIT researcher Sherry Turkle has spent 30 years warning about. Technology is extremely good at creating the illusion of aliveness. Your visual system evolved to trust motion, trust a responsive voice, trust the basic shape of a human face. It has almost no defense against a machine that convincingly fakes those cues.
Here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your limbic system, the ancient, fast-acting emotional core of your brain, cannot fully tell the difference between a video call and a person standing in the room. It evolved across millions of years in a world with exactly one kind of face, a real one attached to a real body, requiring real physical proximity to be seen at all. For nearly the entire span of human existence, if you could see someone's expression, they were present enough to touch. That correlation was never broken. Until.
So when a high-resolution photo, an old voicemail, or a synthetic AI voice mimics those exact cues, your primitive alarm system does something it has always done. It treats the signal as real enough to matter. This is not a personal failure of self-control. It is your evolutionary hardware doing exactly what it was built to do, in an environment it was never built for. That mismatch has a cost, and the cost is measurable. Psychiatrist Catherine Shear, who studies what she calls complicated grief, has found that unresolved mourning keeps the body in a state closer to chronic stress than sadness. Elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, a nervous system stuck scanning for a signal that will not arrive. Anthropologists who study early human grief rituals have long argued that mourning practices exist specifically to force resolution. Burial, ceremony, a visible marking of this person is now in the past. Digital permanence quietly undoes that. When someone's voice, face, and daily updates remain infinitely accessible, the ritual has no ending. The brain stays in high alert, still hunting for a signal that has already gone silent.
There is a term researchers use for what happens next: the frozen self. It describes a survivor who becomes locked into a static loop, replaying the same digital fragments, the same photos, the same last conversation, the same profile, instead of integrating the loss and building a new internal model of life without that person. Sociologist Dennis Klass, one of the researchers behind the continuing bonds theory of grief, actually found that maintaining some connection to the deceased is healthy and completely normal. Cultures have done it forever, through memory, story, and ritual. The danger is not connection itself. The danger is connection with no off switch. A bond so persistently active that new neural pathways, the ones that would normally form around a life that has moved forward, simply never get built. So what do you actually do with a nervous system this outdated?
You cannot delete evolution, but you can redesign the environment it operates in. Some grief researchers now recommend a form of digital hygiene, deliberately archiving rather than deleting, moving a person's messages out of daily use apps and into a single intentional folder you visit on your own terms instead of stumbling into by accident. The goal is not erasure. It is converting an unpredictable slot machine back into a predictable ritual, the same function a grave or memorial always served. Others suggest a shift from active digital intimacy toward symbolic remembrance, replacing daily scrolling with something with a clear beginning and end, like writing to them once a year, or revisiting a single photo on a specific date rather than any time an algorithm decides to surface one. It mimics the shape of the mourning rituals your ancestors relied on for tens of thousands of years, rituals built around boundaries, not infinite access.
And this problem is not shrinking. It is accelerating. As AI reconstruction becomes cheaper and more convincing, an entire generation is going to grow up with the option to keep talking to the dead in real time indefinitely. Some ethicists are already asking hard questions about consent, whether a person can meaningfully agree while alive to being algorithmically resurrected after death. Whichever direction the technology goes, one thing seems certain. The line between gone and still here is only going to get blurrier, and your 200,000-year-old brain is going to need new rituals to survive a world that no longer lets anyone fully disappear. Because in the end, it was never really about the profile, or the last message, or the photo you cannot stop rewatching. It is about a search and predict system that has kept humans alive for millennia, now running on a loop with no finish line. You are not haunted by a person. You are haunted by a signal your evolution never learned how to lose.